Hey, Charles, how's it going?
It is going extraordinarily well. I'm very
So,
relaxed.
so I'm really, really into your show. This past season just was so affecting. I mean, we'd been hinted in season one that we'd be having a boys' camp. I didn't know if it would actually come about, but to see the way that it did this season was really, really incredible. Some of the episodes were so hard hitting. So I wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit about your character, about Kirin and the journey that Kirin takes in this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. Thank you for watching us. So it's still weird. It's still very strange to hear for me that people are watching something that I'm in and that I don't know, because it's my first thing, and it feels like I just had years of getting to this point. So, as we all do, like, just put everything into it. So to have a positive response, which I've been lucky enough to have, and then for the show as well, it's the real dream come true. Because like I just want to work on projects that are worth doing and that are impactful and that stay with people. Like when I was a kid, I watched Lost. So that was my survivor on an island sort of thing. And I was so young, it captured my imagination. And I can imagine for younger generations, but also this show does have quite a big audience. It's just, I don't know. I know I've kind of gone a little sidetracked, but I mean, like that's sort of the energy I put into it. And then Sarah created this awesome arc for Kirin where we talked about how he's going to present as toxically masculine, aggressive, abrasive, decisive, and a leader. That he acts first and thinks later. And then that some of these things are qualities or just elements of his, which throughout his arc we see him sort of morph, and that he is malleable and young, and that really all that abrasiveness and aggression and bravado and testosterone is really just a protective veil or a mask that's hiding a very vulnerable, emotionally sensitive and intelligent young man. And obviously at episode 5 with Josh, we see that veil drop, and we see someone that has an enormous capacity for empathy. And there's something delightful about the juxtaposition of that with where things start. And I wanted people to not like him, as I thought that they might not have face value, because a jock that looks like me in today's day and age, they're kind of a dinosaur. They used to dominate the screen, and now it's sort of like you're all toxic. And watching a lot of those things growing up to, when you go back and you watch like Bring It On, or you watch like one of those, those teen movies, and you're like, oh God, they did not say that. Oh my God. And I'm like, what's so cool is like, I don't think anyone's seen a jock like Kirin. Not because of, not because of how I did it, but because of how Sarah wrote it. Like when I saw it, I was like, I'm sitting on a gold mine here, like so cool to be able to play that range. So
Yeah, you did it so well too. You've touched on it a little bit, but I gotta know, since the show is now out, what's the reaction been like? What's the reaction been like to you, to Kirin, to this season? And have you had any really memorable responses or fan reactions?
It's been weird. It's been good. I set myself with my agent, Tasha, that has been with me from when I finished drama school. She had a conversation with me and encouraged me to, my management's always joking about managing my expectations, because I'm what they call unrealistically optimistic. I'm like, I'm gonna be on that billboard, bitch. And then, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Know what I mean? I just mean like, when you come from the other side of the world, you've got to be like, I can do this. Otherwise, it's all too much. LA is just going to swallow you whole, you know? And anyway, my point of the story is maybe we just cut that. But my point is that my agent told me that to just lower my expectation about what the reaction would be. And so that way I wouldn't be like sort of underwhelmed. And also I just turned off my notifications on Instagram because I was like, that's the only way really that anyone can reach me. I don't really use any other social media. So people that don't know me, that's the place where they would reach out to me, right? It's not like they can text me or they can, you know, send me a letter in a bottle. Like I'm just keeping sort of insular. But that being said, my sisters, of which I have 4, are constantly sending me like the Twitter screenshots or like, oh, this person's saying this about you or this and this. And it's always really positive. And I have, obviously, I'm not a freak. I looked through my DMs and like, you know, I see the comments and like my, you know, like I'm growing, which is weird. Like, it's such a weird thing to me to see like my Instagram, which for me has always been like a funny, like it's mini Carlos for cry. Like what it's meant to be dumb. Like it's meant to be me. It was always me for my friends being like, I'm in LA being a dumb person being here. What's up? And now it's like, am I meant to be professional? Because I don't really know how to do that. Yeah, so for it to be positive is awesome. Last thing I'll say is just because it wasn't before the show dropped. People were sort of like, go away, we don't want you. And then the fandom sort of was like, actually, you're right, you can come in. So that's good.
So this season in particular, there's a lot of really charged scenes with Alex Fitzallen, and the two of you have some really interesting interactions as well too, you know, sort of after the halfway point in the season. So I was really curious about what was it like working with him and being able to perhaps separate his character a little from him, the actor.
Yeah. It wasn't difficult. It really wasn't. Alex is like the most special human being ever. He really, like, we were just super close. He, obviously being Australian as well. And there's just a lot that you can just skip. And as an actor on a set, as an Australian, you're like, this is cool that we're both here. This is really cool. And that aside, like, you know, we just I love to talk. I know I'm trying to keep it. Alex likes to talk too. We like to yell. We like to play dumb video games and like, you know, hang out. He found my car. He found this. I got, yeah, I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, we just created we have a great friendship. And a lot of trust. And when you're making something that has this sort of evocative, sort of controversial content surrounding Alex's character and what the rest, it's important that when you're working with, and I learned this at Whopper, that you know it's not real, you know, obviously it's not real. But when you're shooting a scene, like the scene where I was kicking him on the ground in like episode 6 or 7, he was like, that was dark. The director was really like, no, you all need to up it and be we want to scare the audience and be like, they've gone too far. And I could just feel, because Alex, just in a look, you know, if he was uncomfortable, I wouldn't know. But it meant that I could really get close to like, I'm really, really, really trying to scare the fuck out of you, you know? And then at the end we could hug, you know, and laugh and go home, play video games and talk about whatever else, you know? And it was just amazing. It's also very experienced. So
what I do find incredible about the show is that it feels so real, especially watching it on a screen. You know, most of the time I'm watching on a small little computer, but actually watching the show, and I made sure to, on a television.
You got it on the big screen. Nice.
I made sure, yeah, because it demands it. I think so, and it feels really real.
Yeah, it has definitely a cinematic quality to it, and that's credit to like the crew as well was just first class. Not that I really had something to compare it to, but most of the crew, a lot of the crew had come straight off Elvis, Baz Luhrmann, shooting at Warner Brothers on the Gold Coast, which was also the crazy thing. Like I spent all this time in LA trying to book an American show, and then in Australia, I book an American show, but it shoots in Australia. Come on. But anyway, they were amazing. Like they were so good. Like they're just weapons. They were weapons. It's so good. And then you're in situ, like you're on the beach. We're on Stradbroke. There's dolphins coming out. There was a pod of dolphins that lived right next to where the camp was. I can't believe they didn't put it in the shot. I'd be in the shot. They'd be shooting it. The beach would be in the background. There'd be a dolphin going, whales and all that. Anyway. And so it's like what you see is what you get. And when you're shooting on like that amazing gear and all that stuff, it's like that it's almost like you forget about it.
What's it like with not knowing what you can say, the secrecy of it, you know, the real sort of nitty gritty stuff, the actual filming of it?
Like not knowing in terms of like how the plot.
Well, you probably couldn't talk about even being a part of the show until, you know, the moment is there. And then after that, until people actually get a chance to see the show, you can't really, you sit with it for a while, I imagine, probably over a year.
You know what? Like, I think I was perfectly prepared to deal with not talking about something that I'd filmed because I'd spent years and years and years trying to book something. Like, you know, like 3 years out of drama, 3 or 4 years out of drama school, 5 trips to LA, and then 3 years of drama school. You run into a lot of aunties and cousins and friends of friends and people that go, oh, how's the acting going? Is it going well? And you're like, yes, you know, I have multiple projects in various stages of development, but I've got nothing going on. I'm just like doing like 3 auditions a week. So just to have something and something that I was like, I think this is pretty special. And then be like, it's coming out May 6th. So like, you can either watch it or not. I don't care if you watch it, or if you want to watch it, I think you'll enjoy it. Was awesome. So I rode the wave of being satisfied creatively more than I ever had been, except when I maybe made my own film, but that was over a few week period. Like to shoot for 5.5 months on something with this kind of budget that's this good was all I could ever ask for. So the show coming out's a bonus.
But I wanted to know, what sort of other roles do you think live within you? What do you want to play?
Oh, are people saying I could play other roles?
If Kirin is it, I mean, if you think that this is
Kirin, I actually had a joke with my friends. They would call me Chad as a joke. Once we went to a festival up in Byron, and the whole festival, they all called me Chad. Why? Because I'd auditioned for like 12 Chads, and they were all jocks. And I was like, I didn't do 3 years of drama school to play a fucking jock. And like, but then I was like, you know what? I look like a jock. Like, that's it. I'm not a jock. I'm not a jockey guy at all. But yeah, anyway, so they all called me Chad. And then it's funny that they have jokes about natural born Chad, because I was like, yeah. But anyway, roles that I want to play, I guess the best way to answer that is roles that inspired me when I was young. And then throughout my life. But very briefly, I mean, Patrick Bateman, like in American Psycho, has always been something, and Jude Law and Matt Damon in The Talented Mr. Ripley. Take either of those, or I take Philip Seymour Hoffman, actually, who has probably one of the coolest entries into a movie at a halfway point ever. Like out of a red Alfa Romeo Spider, like hops the door, slides down, flicks a cigarette, checks out a chick, said, don't you just want to fuck everything you see just once? Like, fucking stop. Yeah, I would take, Seymour Hoffman's role in Talented Mr. Ripley. And man, I mean, like, that would just be fun. You know, I'd like to have something I can really sink my teeth into, like Patrick Bateman, which is why it was a little side story. Do we have time, or am I going too long?
No, let's do it.
So it was when 2019, I booked my first movie on my second trip, which was with Mary Harron, who directed American Psycho, in this movie called Daliland, that I was due to play this awesome role in it. And where I was going to play the Jeff Fenholt, who originated the role of Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ Superstar in 1972 or something, Broadway. He was having an affair with Salvador Dali's wife. anyway, it was my thing. It was my big hit, and it got pushed, and then it got pushed again because of COVID, and then it clashed with the Wilds, and they started shooting it. They had to recast it. So, yeah, you know, like indies. Like I think the next thing for me, I guess, maybe a lead role in an indie. I don't know. I'll do anything. Really. Anything I'm allowed to do, I'll do. Test me.
Yeah. Well, I want to skip ahead to go back to the Wilds. So I just want to know, in a female-led show, what does that teach you about sort of maleness?
Well, I was like, this is the perfect show for me. I grew up with 4 sisters, 2 older, 2 younger, you know, Emily, Georgia, Claudia, Adriana, if you're watching, hi. But I just, like, it kind of felt like home. And like Amy and Sarah, Amy is very like, you know, kind of mothering to the group. And it just feels like, it doesn't feel like you're like, we're making this big show and it's all really scary. It just feels like it's simplified and cut down. And I don't know whether this has something to do with whether or not it's a girl's show or not. I haven't worked on other big productions. So for me, all I noticed was that, like, I felt very comfortable. I felt welcome. I felt inspired and a part of. And so, like, then it's just like, it's not something I focus on. Like, I don't go like, oh, this is so good that like girls are running this set. I'm just going, this set is run so well. I don't care who's running it. I'm just here to do a great job because that's what I'm hired to do. Not to say that I don't care, that it's, you know, all I'm saying is that it's not something that like, that pulls me out of it. I'm just like, the best people have been hired and they happen to be women. And that's awesome. That's what real inclusivity looks like. You know, like you still, maybe, I don't know. I don't mean to preach, but that was my experience. And then, yeah, I mean, I have no problem taking direction from women because my sisters always tell me what to do.
In that vein, I just think it's really interesting on the show that, you know, in season 1 into season 2, we see the girls camp and they're very much, for the most part, working together. And it's very inclusive and seems like they're really making the most of the situation. And then you see the boys camp, not quite the same thing.
Well, you know, I would say that, like, while the girls might be existing together without physical conflict and other things, they're not exactly running a very like the fact, you know, as pointed out by the show, they haven't learned how to preserve their food, and their shelter is very questionable. Like someone nearly got crushed by a tree, and I don't know why I'm even saying this. I'm like setting myself up to get hated by people, but I'm just saying, like, they're just kids in the wood. Like, the girls are doing some things great. They're safe. There happens to be no predators on their island. They're in a sanctuary with springs, and the boys have a panther and a predator, like, of a different kind. So I don't know. You know what? Let's just rescind all of that and just say the girls are the best and the boys are shit.
No, I think it's very, very natural to want to defend it. I mean, you've lived in this role and you want to.
I don't want to. Like, that's the thing about the show. Like,
of course,
it's like playing Kirin. Like, it just felt like I was like going Super Saiyan, like Goku, just like all this bullshit. And I'm sorry, I'm going way too intense. But all this. What's so cool about the show, I'm only just like realizing this now, is we're like wrapped in so much, like, you know, kids these days in school, like there's so much pressure on them to define exactly who they are. And then when they're put on the island, girls and boys, like, nobody cares anymore. No one actually gives a shit what you identify as and who you are and where you come from or whatever. All we care about is, where's the water? Where's the food? Is there shelter? Are we safe? And are we going to get the fuck out of here? And then once we get back, we can talk about, you know, all that other stuff. it becomes a civilization in unto itself. Like and then that's what matters. And then I guess the interesting like lead on is then once the group is formed and stability is established, then the sensitivity for who people are can be allowed. And so in the boys and girls, like we see moments like with Scotty and Ivan, where they have that conflict with the spears, and basically Scotty is insinuating very subtly that he's being like a bit of a prancy, like, can you just do something and be a man? And they have that little conflict. And then later he's like, I realize, Scotty realizes he crossed the line, he offended him and says sorry, and they mend. And so there's an appreciation for people's history and who they are. And they're not just savages on an island. And that's where it kind of separates from Lord of the Flies and becomes something wholly unique, which is why I think The Wilds does actually capture such a broad. I met a 74-year-old man in a clothing store in the Valley like 2 days ago, and he's obsessed with The Wilds. I was like, don't they say cunt a bit too much for someone of your age? Like, and yeah, he was like, but he didn't know the name. He didn't know the name, but he was just like, yes, it's like Lord of the Flies. And it described the whole show. And he's like, yeah. I was like, you've seen my bum.
So I have to ask you, have you heard anything about, you leave us on such a cliffhanger. Have you heard about a season 3?
If I had, I'd be actually obliged to say naught.
How could you not have it after that? I mean, to be able to see what happens now.
I know, look, I mean, like, it's funny, before I got this job, and I sort of realized the actor is always the last to know anything, really. Mm-hmm. And like, it's like if you're auditioning, it's like you get so accustomed to hearing these phrases, like, you've done an audition, you've done a callback, and you call your agent or you wait for the text, and they're like, you're in the final few, you're in the mix, it's down to the last couple. They're on the bench, so they're coming back in a week or two, and it's just like, until you see something in writing, it doesn't mean anything. I can tell you what I've heard, but I've heard like 50 different things. Like, it's shooting in Hawaii, it's shooting in Sydney, it's shooting on the moon. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew. Am I meant to be more? Maybe I should just be like, just say, no, I don't know, and just leave it at that.
Let me take you just one more thing relating to the show, a little less pressure, but what about Rachel? How good, I mean, when you're talking about it earlier, like these seem like really kind of twisted experiments that are going on, like to get everyone onto these sides, to these camps, but then she's not like all the way evil, what she's doing on the show. And you almost see like, you like her. I don't even know if you get any interaction with her, but what's it like to have Rachel Griffiths on the show?
She's definitely more likable, I think, this season. I think like we got to see her in like private moments as well, which I found to be, I think we did in the first, but it was just nice to see her like on the beach for a second, or like, I don't know, just little things like that where you're like, oh, that's a human in space that's not like doing something, not being evil. But yeah, I mean, also it's just awesome having Rachel Griffiths because she's a veteran, and it's just like, just glamorous, it's so cool. Like, walk past her in a trailer and she's got like a gown on, and like, I remember when I did my scene with her, I was like, yeah, everyone got their like half day with Rachel, and I was like, oh my God, everyone said so much about you. And like my mum's a big fan, and I'm just like, play cool, bro, play it cool. And she's so relaxed, she's like in the seat, and she's just sort of, she'll just be talking, and oh no, I probably shouldn't talk about her process. Anyway, the point is, really scary to work with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about her process, but she'll go from being really lovely to suddenly being a character, and you're like, oh, but what happened? I thought we were friends. Fuck off. Yeah. So no, it was good. I don't know if I answered your question very well. What was it?
Just about whether, I mean, I'm almost having like this debate now, because you were so defensive of the boys' side, and I was saying the boys' side descended into madness as I probably thought it would. So it's just really interesting, the idea that this could actually be an experiment, and whether or not we take our trauma, because we see flashbacks, do we take that trauma or what we feel off of the island onto the island, or are they completely separate? You know, what are we like in this situation?
Yeah, I look, yeah, this is like a can of worms almost.
Yeah.
It's like I haven't.
I know.
We need to, like, you know, be by the fire.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I will say is this: I resented the idea that people were calling her pathological, or evil, or bad. I don't think she's one of the baddies that think she's bad. You know, there's baddies that think they're bad, the Joker, and they identify with their evil, and they're like, but Rachel's not that. She actually cares for these people. She does. Otherwise, like, she wouldn't have cared when, oh God, no, I forget. Is it Janet? Is it Janet?
Yeah.
And we see that. And then also with, God, the guy that got eaten by the shark in the first episode, Elliot, who was also in my class at drama school, mind you. CJ? TJ, whatever, someone J. That scene that they have together on the wharf, it's like, I watched it like 8 times. Also because he's my boy. But like, yeah, there's something going on there where you're like, she's in pain. She's in pain because her son they have a conflicted relationship, and he's in danger, and he's self-destructive, and she's trying to like put him in a hectic environment. It's either prison or I put you on this island. And so you spent 2 days on this island and now you're ungrateful about it. I just saved you from ruining your life, and now you've got a problem with how I do that. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm on Gretchen's side here. Like, what a brat. But then also, well, you should have raised your kid a bit better.
And also to know that she chooses Confederates to put into the experiment.
Yeah.
It's a can of worms.
I'm not going to defend her too much. I just mean there are moments that we see that offer there's light with the dark, you know, and like there could be, you know, and seeing sparks like that makes me wonder whether or not, like, are they going to make Gretchen like could she be redeemed when the experiment is completed and everybody ends up like, what if, like, you know, it gets set in the future? I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
I just like when she sings karaoke.
Yeah, no, beautiful pipes. I mean, years of training. She knows what she's doing. You should see her, like, she can break a wine glass with like,
oh, I'd like to. Charles, I wanted to say it's been such a pleasure doing this. Speaking, I opened my own can of worms when we wanted to speak with you. I didn't know how fascinating it would be just to hear from you and your process and a little bit about what you've got going on. And I wanted to say it exceeded all of my expectations. And then
oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been really nice. I feel like it's been very calm and enjoyable. I would do it for another half hour, but as it happens, I need to go get a coffee. So
take care.